The transmission crackled through the depths of space, its signal degraded by 3 months of travel across the void. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the communications bay of the UES Horizon, humanity's first interstellar vessel, watching her crew's faces fall as the alien message played for the third time. Species designation, human. Origin world, Sol. 3. Classification, primitive. Council decision. Exclusion from galactic community. Reasoning. Violent tendencies, technological insufficiency, cultural instability. Do not attempt further contact. This message will not be repeated. The voice that delivered humanity's death sentence was cold, mechanical, translated through universal communication protocols that had taken Earth's best linguists 5 years to crack. Around Sarah, her crew of 47 stood in stunned silence. 3 years of brutal acceleration through the void, leaving Earth's solar system for the first time in human history, and this was their welcome. Doctor! Marcus Webb, the mission's chief xenobiologist, was the first to break the silence. "They've been watching us," he whispered, his voice hoarse with shock. "All this time, they've been watching." Sarah nodded grimly. The implications were staggering. Every radio transmission Earth had sent into space since 1950, every television broadcast, every desperate attempt at communication with potential alien life, all of it had been received, catalogued, and judged by civilizations beyond their comprehension. Lieutenant Commander James Okafor, the ship's tactical officer, slammed his fist against the nearest bulkhead. 75 years of sending messages into space. 75 years of hoping, dreaming, wondering if we were alone. And they were there the whole time, just ignoring us. "Not ignoring," corrected Dr. Elena Vasquez, the mission's chief anthropologist. "Evaluating. They've been studying us like specimens in a lab, waiting to see if we'd evolve into something worthy of their attention." The weight of cosmic rejection settled over the crew like a physical presence. Sarah had prepared for many scenarios during their journey to Proxima Centauri. Hostile aliens, indifferent aliens, even the possibility of finding nothing at all. But she hadn't prepared for this, the knowledge that humanity had been found wanting by judges they'd never even known existed. Young Ensign David Park, barely 23 and fresh from the academy, spoke up from his position at the communications console. "Captain, there's more. The signal, it's not just directed at us. It's broadcasting on multiple frequencies, multiple formats. They want everyone to know." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. The humiliation was intentional. Humanity's rejection wasn't a private affair. It was a public declaration to whatever other civilizations might be watching. A warning sign posted for all to see. These beings are not worth your time. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez stepped forward, her coveralls still stained with lubricants from the engine room where she'd been working when the message arrived.
"Captain, with respect, screw them." Her voice carried the accent of her childhood in Mexico City, but her eyes held the steel that had carried her through 15 years of engineering challenges.
"We didn't need their permission to get here, and we don't need it to keep going." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew, but Sarah could see the doubt in their eyes.
The Horizon was humanity's greatest achievement, a fusion-powered marvel that had taken 3 years to reach their nearest stellar neighbor. But the alien message had been transmitted using technology that suggested their journey, their great leap into the cosmos, was nothing more than a baby's first steps to civilizations that had mastered the stars. Dr. Webb pulled up the star charts on the main display. The signal originated from the Kepler 442 system, about 47 light-years from Earth. But the transmission time suggests they knew we were coming here before we even left Earth's orbit. They have faster-than-light communication, and probably faster-than-light travel, added Okafor grimly. Which means if they wanted us gone, we'd already be gone. Silence fell again, heavier this time. The implications were clear. Humanity existed at the sufferance of beings so far advanced that they could end human civilization with barely an effort, and those same beings had looked at everything humanity had ever accomplished and found it unworthy of even acknowledgement. Sarah walked to the viewport, staring out at the alien stars that suddenly seemed less welcoming. Proxima Centauri blazed in the distance, red and angry, its light taking 4 years to reach Earth. How many other civilizations were out there? How many worlds teemed with life that humanity would never be allowed to meet? "Captain," said Dr. Fawn, Vasquez quietly moving to stand beside her. "What are your orders?" It was the question Sarah had been dreading. Earth had invested everything in this mission. Resources, hope, the dreams of an entire species. The Horizon carried not just a crew, but the expectations of 8 billion humans who had watched their launch with tears in their eyes and wonder in their hearts. She thought of the children who had drawn pictures of aliens to send with the mission, of the scientists who had worked themselves to exhaustion to make the journey possible, of the politicians who had somehow found the will to fund humanity's first step to the stars, despite every crisis and conflict on Earth. "We continue the mission," she said finally. "We survey the Proxima system, we gather what data we can, and we return home." "And then what?" asked Park. "Earth will want answers. They'll want to know what we found, what we learned. How do we tell them that we're alone not by accident, but by decree?" Sarah turned from the viewport to face her crew. These were the best and brightest humanity had to offer, men and women who had volunteered to leave everything they knew behind for the slim chance of making contact with alien life. They deserve better than cosmic rejection. But as she looked at their faces, disappointed, hurt but not broken, she realized something. The aliens had made a fundamental miscalculation. They had judged humanity based on their broadcasts, their wars, their seemingly primitive technology. But they hadn't accounted for the one trait that had driven every human achievement throughout history, the absolute refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. "We tell Earth the truth," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "We tell them that the galaxy is full of life, full of civilizations that have deemed themselves our betters. And then we ask Earth a simple question. Do we accept their judgment or do we prove them wrong?" Martinez grinned, the first smile anyone had worn since the message arrived. "I vote for proving them wrong, Captain." "Seconded," said Okafor. "Third," added Webb. One by one, the crew voiced their agreement. Even young Park, still pale from the shock of rejection, nodded firmly. "If they don't want us in their club, Captain, maybe it's not a club worth joining." Dr. Vasquez pulled up another display, this one showing the vast expanse of unexplored space beyond known alien territories. "The galaxy is big, Captain." "Very big. If they want to claim the civilized parts, fine. But there's a whole lot of uncivilized space out there that nobody seems to be using, Dean." Sarah felt something shift in her chest, a familiar sensation she recognized from her days as a test pilot. It was the feeling she got when someone told her something was impossible, when experts explained why it couldn't be done, when conventional wisdom demanded she accept failure. It was the feeling that always preceded her greatest achievements. "Set course for the Outer Rim," she ordered. "If the galactic community wants to exclude humanity, then humanity will build its own community." The crew moved with new purpose, no longer weighed down by rejection, but energized by possibility. The Horizon's fusion engines hummed to life, pushing them away from the established galactic territories and toward the vast unexplored regions beyond. As they traveled, Sarah began composing her report to Earth. She would tell them about the rejection, about the cosmic judgment that had found humanity wanting. But more importantly, she would tell them about the opportunity. The galaxy thought humanity was too primitive, too violent, too unstable to join their community of advanced civilizations. They had looked at human history, the wars, the conflicts, the struggles, and seen only chaos and destruction. But Sarah saw something else in that same history. She saw a species that had never met a challenge it couldn't eventually overcome, never encountered a barrier it couldn't eventually breach. Humanity had crawled from caves to stars in the blink of an evolutionary eye, had turned their own violent nature into a tool for progress, had built wonders from the ashes of their failures. The galactic community had given humanity the greatest gift possible, though they didn't realize it yet. They had freed humanity from the need to conform to alien expectations, alien limitations, alien definitions of what intelligent life should become. Humanity was alone among the stars, but they had always been alone. The only difference now was that they knew it, and knowing it, they could finally stop waiting for permission to become what they were meant to be. The transmission to Earth would take 4 years to arrive, carried by the same faster-than-light communication technology that humanity was already beginning to understand and improve upon. By the time it reached home, Sarah was certain humanity would have already begun to change. The galaxy had excluded Earth, thinking it was a punishment. They had no idea it was actually liberation. In the depths of space, the UES Horizon continued its journey toward the unknown, carrying with it the seeds of humanity's true destiny. Behind them, the established galactic community continued their ancient routines, comfortable in their superiority. None of them noticed the small human ship disappearing into the darkness beyond their borders. None of them realized that they had just made the first of many critical errors in their assessment of the species they had dismissed. Humanity had smiled, accepted their rejection, and walked away. Now the real work could begin. 20 years had passed since the Horizons returned to Earth, and Director Alexandra Morrison stood before the assembled representatives of the United Nations Space Consortium, delivering what would later be remembered as the speech that changed everything. "The Kepler survey fleet has returned with confirmation," she announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her words. 17 star systems surveyed, 14 containing habitable worlds, 0 showing signs of current galactic civilization presence. The assembly hall erupted in murmurs. Since receiving Captain Chen's report 2 decades ago, humanity had thrown itself into space exploration with an intensity that bordered on obsession. The rejection by the galactic community had not broken human spirit. It had unleashed it. Director Chen herself, now graying but still sharp-eyed, sat in the front row. Her pioneering voyage had been followed by dozens of others, each pushing further into the unexplored regions beyond galactic territory. What they found had exceeded even humanity's wildest dreams. "The Outer Rim," Morrison continued, "is not empty. It's unclaimed." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, now Earth's leading expert on galactic sociology, stood to address the assembly. "Our analysis of intercepted communications suggests the established galactic civilizations have grown comfortable within their traditional territories. They've created a stable, predictable society that values order above exploration, conformity above innovation. In other words, added General Patricia Reynolds, head of Earth's new Strategic Space Command, they've grown soft. The assessment was harsh but accurate. Humanity's continued monitoring of galactic communications had revealed civilizations that had achieved technological maturity centuries ago and then simply stopped. They maintained their territories, engaged in complex diplomatic relationships, and pursued abstract intellectual endeavors, but they had lost something vital: the drive to grow beyond their boundaries. Morrison activated the holographic display at the center of the assembly hall. A three-dimensional map of local galactic space appeared, showing the established territories of known civilizations in blue and humanity's expanding sphere of exploration in green. The contrast was striking. While the galactic community maintained its borders within a roughly spherical region encompassing perhaps 10% of the galaxy, humanity's green markers spread like wildfire across the outer rim, reaching into regions that had been ignored by galactic civilization for millennia. The Tau Ceti colony is now home to 50,000 people, Morrison reported. Wolf 359 supports a population of 30,000. The orbital habitats around Gliese 667c house another 40,000. In 2 decades, we've established permanent human presence in over 30 star systems. What she didn't mention, but everyone in the room knew, was how those colonies had been established. Humanity had not waited for alien technology or alien permission. They had built their own faster-than-light drives, crude and energy-intensive compared to galactic standards, but functional. They had developed their own terraforming techniques, their own space habitats, their own solutions to the countless problems of interstellar colonization. Every failure had taught them something. Every setback had made them stronger. The colony ship Endeavour had been lost to dry failure in the Procyon system, but its sacrifice had led to improvements that saved 3 other missions. The terraforming disaster on Kepler 9.6. 2F had killed 8,000 colonists, but it had also revealed genetic modification techniques that now allowed humans to thrive in environments that would kill most galactic species. Commander Elena Vasquez, now in her 70s but still leading humanity's xenoarchaeology efforts, provided the next revelation. Our surveys of abandoned worlds within galactic territory show a pattern. These civilizations expand to a certain point, achieve technological stability, and then their exploration efforts simply cease. We found 17 dead colonies, all apparently abandoned not through disaster but through deliberate withdrawal. "They're playing it safe," said Dr. Kang. Webb, his hair now white but his mind as sharp as ever. Risk avoidance has become their defining characteristic. They've created a society where failure is unacceptable, which means they've also created a society where true innovation is impossible. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been rejected not because they were inferior, but because they were different. Where galactic civilization prized stability, humanity embraced chaos. Where they valued conformity, humanity celebrated individuality. Where they sought to eliminate risk, humanity used risk as a tool for growth. Morrison brought up the next display, showing economic projections that made several representatives gasp. Our outer rim territories now contain resources equivalent to 47 Earth years of total planetary output. Rare elements that are scarce in galactic space are abundant in the regions they've ignored. The economic revolution had been as dramatic as the territorial expansion. Human colonies weren't just self-sufficient, they were becoming wealthy beyond Earth's wildest dreams. Asteroid mining operations in unclaimed systems provided metals and rare elements in quantities that dwarfed anything available in established space. Entire worlds rich in resources that galactic civilization had overlooked or deemed too difficult to reach were now flying human flags. The Vega Industrial Complex alone produces more processed titanium-vanadium alloy than the entire Centauri Trade Confederation, added Economic Coordinator Michael Kim. Our fusion fuel production exceeds our consumption by 300%. We're not just surviving in exile, we're thriving. Young Ensign Park, now Admiral Park, and commander of humanity's growing space fleet, provided the military assessment. Our defensive capabilities have evolved beyond anything we originally imagined. The rejection protocols we developed after first contact have been tested and refined. We're not hiding from galactic civilization, we're simply choosing not to interact with them. The rejection protocols were humanity's answer to galactic exclusion. Rather than attempting to force their way into alien society, humans had developed sophisticated systems for avoiding contact with galactic vessels and installations. It wasn't fear that drove these protocols, it was pride. Humanity had been told they weren't wanted, and they had taken that message to heart. But the protocols had an unexpected side effect. By avoiding contact, humanity had also avoided the technological dependence that seemed to plague younger civilizations within galactic space. Instead of adopting alien technology, humans had been forced to develop their own solutions, often superior to galactic standards. Dr. Pa. Sarah Okafor, the daughter of the Horizon's former tactical officer and now Earth's leading physicist, presented the most shocking revelation of all. Our analysis of captured galactic technology shows significant design limitations. Their faster-than-light drives are more efficient than ours, but they're also more fragile. Their energy weapons are more precise, but they have lower sustained output. Their artificial intelligence systems are more sophisticated, but they lack adaptability. They've optimized for perfection, she continued, but perfection is brittle. Our technology is messier, less elegant, but it's also more robust. When our systems fail, they fail partially and can be repaired in the field. When their systems fail, they fail completely and require specialized facilities to fix. The pattern was becoming clear. Galactic civilization had achieved technological maturity by eliminating variables, by creating systems that worked perfectly under ideal conditions. Humanity had achieved technological progress by embracing variables, by creating systems that worked adequately under any conditions. Morrison called for the final presentation, knowing it would change everything. Captain Martinez, please present your findings from the Outer Reach expedition. Captain Rosa Martinez, granddaughter of the Horizon's chief engineer and commander of humanity's deepest space exploration mission, stepped to the podium. Her 18-month journey into the galaxy's unexplored regions had pushed human exploration further than ever before. "We found them," she said simply. The others. The assembly fell silent. The others were theoretical. Civilizations that, like humanity, had been rejected by or had chosen to remain outside galactic society. Many scientists doubted they existed. 3 separate species, Martinez continued. The builders left their home system 12 centuries ago, after what our translators suggest was a philosophical disagreement with galactic leadership. The Wanderers appear to have been excluded for excessive territorial expansion. Apparently, they share humanity's tendency to claim unclaimed space. And the Shapers, she paused, choosing her words carefully. The Shapers were exiled for genetic modification practices that galactic civilization deemed destabilizing to species purity. The room erupted. 3 alien civilizations, each cast out for traits that humanity either possessed or admired. Each had survived, grown, and prospered outside galactic oversight. "They're willing to meet," Martinez added. "The Builders are interested in our terraforming techniques. The Wanderers want to discuss territorial agreements and mutual defense. And the Shapers," she smiled. "The Shapers are fascinated by our genetic modifications and want to compare notes." Director Morrison stood to address the assembly one final time. 20 years ago, galactic civilization told us we weren't good enough to join their community. Today, we've discovered that we're not alone in that judgment, and that maybe being rejected was the best thing that ever happened to us. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would continue its expansion into the Outer Rim, would formalize contact with the other civilizations, and would begin construction of what amounted to a competing galactic community, one built on growth rather than stagnation, innovation rather than conformity, calculated risk rather than absolute safety.
As the assembly adjourned, Morrison reflected on the irony.
Galactic civilization had excluded humanity to protect their stable, peaceful society from human chaos and violence. But in doing so, they had given humanity something far more valuable than membership in their community. They had given humanity the freedom to become something greater. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, beyond the borders of established civilization, a new power was rising. It spoke dozens of languages, embraced genetic modification, celebrated controlled chaos, and viewed the unknown not as a threat to be avoided, but as an opportunity to be seized. The galaxy had excluded Earth, thinking it would contain the human problem. Instead, they had simply changed its location. And now, for the first time in galactic history, the established order faced something they had never encountered before: competition. The age of galactic complacency was ending, though most galactic citizens didn't know it yet. Humanity, along with their new alien allies, was about to show them what they had given up, in exchange for their perfect, predictable peace. The real question was whether galactic civilization would adapt to this new reality or be replaced by it. Humanity, naturally, was eager to find out. Ambassador Kethvar of the Altarian Dominion stared at the holographic display with growing alarm. The blue markers representing established galactic territories remained constant, as they had for centuries. But the red markers, representing unknown activity beyond the rim, had multiplied exponentially in just 50 years. "Show me the resource flow analysis," he commanded his aide. The display shifted, revealing shipping lanes that made Kethvar's tertiary heart skip a beat. Massive cargo convoys moved through previously empty space, carrying quantities of rare elements that should have been impossible to obtain without galactic-approved extraction techniques. "Sir," his aide whispered, "the quantum resonance signatures don't match any known galactic drive systems." 50 years had passed since the galactic community had dismissed the primitive humans from Sol 3. 50 years since their rejection message had been transmitted across the galaxy as a warning to other civilizations about the dangers of dealing with unstable species. 50 years that had, according to the intelligence reports now flooding in from across the galaxy, been a catastrophic miscalculation. High Counselor Zephyx of the Galactic Council sat in emergency session, surrounded by representatives from 47 member civilizations. The ornate council chamber on Nexus Prime, seat of galactic government for over 2 millennia, had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. "The evidence is undeniable," reported Intelligence Director Vashti, her usual composed demeanor cracking under the weight of her revelations. "A minimum of 4 separate civilizations are operating large-scale industrial complexes in the Outer Rim. Their technological signatures suggest indigenous development rather than stolen galactic technology." Councillor Zerion of the Trade Federation leaned forward, his crystalline features refracting the chamber's light into worried rainbows. "Our merchant vessels report supply shortages in 17 different rare element markets. Elements that were once exclusive to our territory are now available through black market sources at half our prices." "Black market sources that trace back to the Outer Rim," added Vashti grimly. The implications were staggering. For 2,000 years, galactic civilization had maintained economic stability through careful resource management and territorial control. The idea that someone could simply ignore their boundaries and extract resources from unclaimed space had never seriously been considered. High Counselor Zephyx activated the chamber's central display, showing the latest intelligence summary. "According to our deep space monitoring stations, industrial activity in the Outer Rim now exceeds the combined output of 12 major galactic worlds. Whoever is out there, they're not hiding anymore." The transformation had been gradual but relentless. What began as scattered energy signatures in distant space had evolved into a massive industrial complex spanning hundreds of star systems. Mining operations, manufacturing facilities, and what appeared to be entire artificial worlds had sprung up in regions that galactic civilization had written off as worthless void. Director of Colonial Affairs Tharnik presented the most disturbing evidence yet. Long-range scans have identified what appear to be terraforming operations on 17 worlds previously classified as uninhabitable. The techniques being used are unprecedented. The display showed before and after images of worlds that had been transformed from barren rocks into garden planets in a matter of decades. The speed and scale of the transformation defied galactic understanding of planetary engineering. "How is this possible?" demanded Councillor Urel of the Scientific Union. "Our own terraforming projects take centuries and require the combined resources of multiple worlds. These operations appear to have been completed in mere decades. Furthermore," Thane continued, "the life forms we're detecting on these worlds don't match any known species in the galactic database. Genetic analysis suggests extensive modification and adaptation to local conditions." Admiral Corex of the Galactic Defense Force provided the military assessment that sent chills through the council chamber. Our scout ships have encountered defensive installations around several outer rim systems. The technology is unfamiliar, but preliminary analysis suggests capabilities that rival or exceed our own. The silence that followed was deafening. For millennia, galactic civilization had remained unchallenged. Their technological superiority had been absolute, their territorial control unquestioned. The idea that someone could not only match their capabilities but potentially exceed them was almost incomprehensible. There's more, Admiral Corex continued reluctantly. 3 of our scout ships have gone missing in Outer Rim territory. We've received no distress signals, no wreckage has been found. They simply disappeared. High Counselor Zephyx felt the weight of leadership pressing down on his shoulders. Intelligence Director Vashti, what do we know about these Outer Rim civilizations? Who are they? What do they want? Vashti's response sent shockwaves through the assembly. Preliminary analysis suggests at least one of the major powers is the human civilization from Solbar. 3. The humans we rejected 50 years ago. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Councillor Zirian's crystalline features flashed brilliant red, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. Impossible. Our assessment showed them to be primitive, violent, technologically inferior. They couldn't have achieved this level of development in 50 years. Unless, said Dr. Michael of the Psychological Assessment Division, our assessment was fundamentally flawed. Dr. Michael had been one of the few voices of caution during the original human evaluation, but his concerns had been dismissed as overly conservative. Now, vindicated and terrified, he presented his analysis to the Council. We evaluated human civilization based on their internal conflicts, their technological limitations, and their social instability. But we failed to account for their most significant characteristic, their response to external pressure. The display showed historical analyses that painted a very different picture of humanity than the original assessment. Every major human advancement has come in response to external challenges. Their space program accelerated after their Cold War. Their technology improved dramatically during their global conflicts. Their scientific breakthroughs consistently followed periods of crisis. You're suggesting, said High Counselor Zephyx slowly, that our rejection acted as a catalyst. More than that, Dr. Michael replied. I'm suggesting that we gave them the greatest external pressure possible. The challenge of surviving and thriving in a galaxy that had declared them unworthy. The pieces began falling into place. Intelligence reports of human colonies weren't showing desperate refugees scraping out a living in hostile space. They showed thriving communities that had turned the challenge of Outer Rim survival into an opportunity for unprecedented growth. Director Vashti provided additional context that made the situation even more alarming. Our analysis of captured technology samples suggests the humans haven't simply advanced their existing science. They've developed entirely new approaches to problems we considered solved. Their faster-than-light drives use a completely different principle than ours, reported Chief Technologist Kwandar. Less efficient in terms of energy consumption, but capable of operating under conditions that would disable our systems. Their manufacturing processes are more wasteful by our standards, but also more adaptable to different environmental conditions. They've essentially reinvented galactic-level technology from scratch, added Dr. Michael, but without our limitations, our assumptions, our dependencies on established infrastructure. The full scope of the galactic community's error was becoming clear. By excluding humanity, they had inadvertently freed them from the technological and social constraints that bound galactic civilization. Humans had been forced to develop solutions that worked in hostile, unsupported environments. Solutions that were proving superior to galactic technology in many ways.
Admiral Corex presented the military implications.
If the humans have achieved technological parity or superiority, and if they've allied with other excluded civilizations as our intelligence suggests, then they represent a potential threat unlike anything we've faced in recorded history.
Not just a military threat, added Councillor Zirian, an economic one. Their resource extraction capabilities are undermining our market stability. Their manufacturing is undercutting our established trade relationships. They're not just competing with us, they're making us obsolete. High Counselor Zephyx stood to address the assembly. What do we know about human intentions? Are they preparing for war? Do they seek to replace galactic civilization? What do they want? The answer came from an unexpected source. Communications specialist Veltar, a junior officer who rarely spoke during council sessions, rose hesitantly. Sir, we've been monitoring their public communications channels. Their intentions appear to be expansion and trade. Explain. They're not preparing for invasion of galactic territory. They're simply continuing to expand into unclaimed space. But they've also begun broadcasting trade offers to independent worlds on the galactic rim. They're seeking to establish economic relationships outside our control. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't planning to destroy galactic civilization. They were planning to ignore it entirely while building something bigger and more dynamic in its place.
They're creating a parallel galactic community, said Dr.
Michael with something approaching admiration. One based on growth rather than stability, innovation rather than tradition, merit rather than established hierarchy. And, added Intelligence Director Vashti, they're succeeding. The evidence was overwhelming. Independent worlds on the galactic rim were already beginning to trade with outer rim civilizations. Young galactic species were showing interest in human technology and ideas. Even some established civilizations were quietly exploring the possibility of expanding beyond traditional boundaries. High Counselor Zephyx realized that galactic civilization faced its greatest crisis in 2 millennia. Not a military threat that could be defeated through superior firepower, but an existential challenge to everything their society represented. Recommendations? He asked the assembly. The debate that followed would continue for weeks, but already 3 factions were emerging. Some called for immediate military action to eliminate the outer rim threat before it could grow stronger. Others argued for diplomatic contact to negotiate some form of coexistence. A third group, growing larger each day, suggested that perhaps galactic civilization needed to learn from humanity's example and begin expanding beyond their comfortable boundaries. As the emergency session adjourned, High Counselor Zephyx remained in the empty chamber, staring at the display that showed humanity's inexorable expansion across the galaxy. 50 years ago, galactic civilization had confidently rejected a primitive species from an insignificant world. Today, that same species was reshaping the galaxy according to their own vision, one unclaimed star system at a time. The galaxy had excluded Earth, thinking it would end the problem. Instead, it had simply given humanity room to grow. And humanity, it seemed, had taken full advantage of that room. The question now was whether galactic civilization could adapt to a galaxy where they were no longer the only power, or whether they would become a footnote in the history of humanity's rise to galactic prominence. Either way, the age of galactic dominance was ending. A new age was beginning, and humanity was writing its rules. The Nexus Prime Council chamber had never hosted a gathering quite like this one. For the first time in galactic history, representatives of the established Galactic Council sat across from delegates of the Outer Rim Alliance, the coalition of civilizations that humanity had helped forge in the darkness beyond galactic territory. High Counselor Zephyx studied the beings seated at the opposing negotiation table with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. At the center sat Director General Maria Santos Chen, great-granddaughter of the captain who had led humanity's first interstellar voyage. Her presence alone represented everything that had gone wrong with galactic civilization's original calculations. Beside her sat the massive form of Constructor Prime, Zethkal of the Builders, a species whose architectural marvels now dotted dozens of outer rim worlds. To her left was expansion leader Keekstal of the Wanderers, their species' natural aggression channeled into peaceful territorial growth that had claimed over 100 star systems in the past half-century. And completing the delegation was Gene Shaper Veltara, whose species' biological mastery had helped terraform worlds at speeds that defied galactic understanding. "We appreciate the Council's willingness to meet," Director General Santos Chen began, her voice carrying the diplomatic polish that came from speaking for billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. "Though I must note that this meeting comes 75 years after our civilization's first attempted contact. The barb was delivered with surgical precision." High Counselor Zephyx felt the weight of historical irony. The primitive humans who had once begged for galactic recognition were now negotiating from a position of strength that made even the Council nervous. "We gather today," Zephyx replied carefully, "to address the growing concerns about territorial boundaries and resource allocation in the Outer Rim regions." Constructor Prime Zeth. Well, Cole's translated voice rumbled through the chamber's speakers. "You mean you're concerned that we've made your worthless void more economically productive than your core worlds?" The statement was accurate and devastating. Intelligence reports showed that Outer Rim territories now produced more processed materials, rare elements, and manufactured goods than the combined output of 15 major galactic worlds. The economic implications were staggering, and getting worse each year. Trade Minister Zirion activated a holographic display showing galactic economic projections. Our economists estimate that if current trends continue, Outer Rim economic output will exceed that of traditional galactic space within 20 years. Your economists, said Gene Shaper Veltara, her bioluminescent patches flickering with what her species considered amusement, have consistently underestimated Outer Rim capabilities for 7 decades.
She was right, and everyone in the chamber knew it.
Every galactic projection about Outer Rim development had proven conservative. Every estimate of their technological capabilities had been exceeded. Every assessment of their territorial expansion had been surpassed within years of being made. Director General Santos Chen leaned forward, her expression serious. Council members, we didn't request this meeting to gloat about our success. We requested it because both our civilizations face a critical decision about the future of galactic development. Explain, said High Councilor Zephyx. You've created a stable, peaceful society that has endured for millennia. Santos Chen continued. That's a remarkable achievement. But stability without growth is not sustainability. It's stagnation. Your territories are experiencing resource depletion, population decline, and technological plateau. You need what we have. The brutal honesty sent murmurs through the galactic delegation. Admiral Corex leaned forward aggressively. And what exactly do you think we need from outcasts and rejects? Expansion leader Kickstar answered with predatory satisfaction. Living space, resources, markets, innovation, genetic diversity, challenge, purpose. Each word struck like a physical blow. Everything your civilization has forgotten how to create. The evidence supporting their claims filled the chamber's displays. Galactic birth rates had been declining for centuries, their societies increasingly risk-averse and change-resistant. Meanwhile, Outer Rim civilizations were experiencing rapid population growth, technological innovation, and territorial expansion. Dr. Michael, now the Council's chief advisor on Outer Rim affairs, presented his analysis with the grim satisfaction of vindicated predictions. Our psychological profiles show increasing rates of what we term civilizational ennui among galactic populations. Lack of purpose, reduced innovation, declining birth rates, increased dependence on established systems. Meanwhile, he continued, Outer Rim civilizations show the opposite trends. High motivation, rapid innovation, population growth, technological independence. They've retained what we've lost, the drive to grow beyond current limitations. Constructor Prime Zeth Cull provided specifics that made the galactic delegation uncomfortable. Our architectural projects now span entire solar systems. The wanderers have established self-sustaining colonies on worlds you declared uninhabitable. The gene shapers have developed life forms capable of thriving in environments that would kill most galactic species. And the humans. His pause was deliberate. The humans have learned to do all of the above. Director General Santos Chen activated her own display, showing the current state of Outer Rim territory. The scope was breathtaking. 1,000 star systems connected by trade routes, defended by alliance fleets, and administered by a loose confederation that somehow managed to coordinate the activities of 4 radically different species. We call it the Prosperity Sphere, she explained. Not because it's wealthy, though it is, but because it's designed for growth. Every world we settle makes the next settlement easier. Every technological breakthrough gets shared across all member civilizations. Every challenge overcome becomes a tool for meeting the next challenge. You're describing perpetual expansion, said Environmental Coordinator Thelvin with barely concealed horror. Unlimited growth is unsustainable. Gene Shaper Velthara's bioluminescent patches flickered in what appeared to be laughter. Only if you're limited to natural resources and traditional planets. We're not. The displays shifted to show projects that challenged galactic understanding of what was possible. Artificial worlds constructed from asteroids and cometary material. Solar collectors that transformed entire stars into power sources. Biological systems that could create breathable atmospheres from volcanic gases. We don't mine planets, explained Expansion Leader Quitchtal. We build them. The galactic delegation absorbed this information with growing unease. Their own civilization had reached its current boundaries by exploiting naturally occurring resources and habitable worlds. The idea of literally constructing star systems to meet growing needs was beyond their conceptual framework. High Councilor Zephyx tried to regain control of the conversation. Your achievements are impressive, but they don't address the fundamental question. What do you want from us? Director General Santos Chen's answer surprised everyone. Nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. We don't want your territory, she continued. We don't need your resources. We don't require your recognition or approval. We've spent 75 years learning to live without galactic civilization, and we've prospered. Then why are you here? Demanded Admiral Corex. Because isolation isn't our goal. Independence was. Santos Chen's distinction was subtle, but crucial. We want to end the Cold War between our civilizations and establish normal diplomatic and economic relations. Not as supplicants seeking admission to your community, but as equals offering mutual cooperation. The word equals hit the galactic delegation like a physical blow. For 2 millennia, they had been the undisputed masters of galactic space. The concept of acknowledging other civilizations as equals challenged the fundamental assumptions of their society. Trade Minister Zerion finally asked the question that had been haunting galactic leadership for months. What happens if we refuse? Constructor Prime Zeph. Cool's translated voice carried a note of finality. Then you continue on your current path and we continue on ours. In 100 years, perhaps 200, your civilization completes its decline into irrelevance. We continue growing, exploring, building, creating. Eventually, your descendants come to us, asking for the help you're refusing today. You're threatening us, accused Admiral Corex. We're explaining market forces, corrected Director General Santos Chen. Your populations are aging, your resources are depleting, your technology is stagnating. Our populations are growing, our resource base is expanding, our technology is advancing. This isn't a threat, it's mathematics. Ah, Doctor. Michael provided the projections that confirmed everyone's worst fears. Based on current trends, galactic civilization has perhaps 3 centuries before critical system failures begin affecting major worlds. Resource shortages, demographic collapse, technological obsolescence, any one of these could trigger civilizational decline. However, he continued, cooperation with outer rim civilizations could reverse all of these trends within 50 years. The carrot and stick were presented simultaneously. Galactic civilization could choose cooperation and mutual benefit, or they could choose pride and eventual irrelevance. High Counselor Zephix felt the weight of species history on his shoulders. The decision they made in this chamber would determine whether galactic civilization adapted to a changing galaxy or became another failed empire in the cosmic historical record. What form would this cooperation take? He asked. Director General Santos Chen smiled, the first genuinely warm expression she'd shown during the negotiations. Open borders, free trade, technology sharing, joint exploration projects, cultural exchange programs. Everything that normal civilizations do when they treat each other with mutual respect. In other words, added expansion leader Keystal, what you should have offered us 75 years ago. The irony was complete. Humanity and their allies were offering galactic civilization the same relationship that galactic civilization had refused to offer them decades earlier. The difference was that now the positions of strength had reversed. As the session adjourned for deliberation, High Counselor Zephix realized that the galaxy had reached a turning point. The age of galactic hegemony was ending, not through conquest or collapse, but through the simple reality that other civilizations had learned to thrive without galactic approval. The question was whether galactic civilization would gracefully transition to being one power among many, or whether they would cling to their fading supremacy until it destroyed them. In the corridors outside the council chamber, Director General Santos Chen reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this point. 75 years ago, humanity had begged for acceptance. Today, they were offering partnership to civilizations that had once rejected them as unworthy. The galaxy had excluded Earth, forcing humanity to build their own path among the stars. Now humanity was extending a hand to help the galaxy catch up. Whether galactic civilization would swallow their pride enough to accept that help remained to be seen, but humanity had learned patience in the void between stars. They could wait. 100 years after first contact, Ambassador Eleanor Santos Chen Okafor stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station orbiting Nexus Prime, watching the construction of humanity's first embassy within traditional galactic space. The irony was not lost on her. A century ago, humanity had been rejected as unworthy of contact. Today, they were being begged to save galactic civilization from its own success. The galaxy had changed dramatically in the past century, where once there had been a clear division between the established Galactic Council territories and the Outer Rim Prosperity Sphere. Now the boundaries were blurred by hundreds of joint colonies, cooperative mining operations, and integrated trade networks. Ambassador, her aide announced, High Counselor Zephix's successor is requesting an urgent meeting. Elena nodded, though she suspected she knew what High Counselor Vexthara wanted to discuss. The latest reports from the galactic core worlds painted a picture that would have been unthinkable a century ago. Established civilizations voluntarily abandoning their homeworlds to join outer rim colonies where opportunities for growth and innovation still existed. The meeting took place in the same council chamber where her grandmother had once negotiated as an equal with beings who had considered themselves humanity's superiors. Now Elena sat across from High Counselor Vexthara, noting the subtle signs of civilizational decline that had become increasingly common among galactic leadership. The slight tremor that spoke of genetic bottlenecking, the careful movements that suggested dependence on life extension technology, the tired eyes of someone representing a society that had forgotten how to dream. Ambassador Santos Genocafor, Vexthara began, using Elena's full hyphenated name in a gesture of respect that previous council leaders would never have considered. We have a situation that requires outer rim expertise. Elena waited, knowing that patience was both a diplomatic virtue and a subtle reminder of the power dynamics that had shifted so dramatically over the past century. The Centauri Trade Federation is requesting full membership in the Prosperity Sphere, Vexthara continued. They're the 7th major galactic civilization to make such a request in the past year. The statement hung in the air between them. When the Prosperity Sphere had first been established, membership had been limited to civilizations that had been excluded from or had chosen to remain outside galactic society. Now, major galactic powers were abandoning their traditional territories to join the dynamic Outer Rim Alliance. I assume the Council has concerns about this trend, Elena said diplomatically. We're hemorrhaging entire civilizations, Vexthara replied with brutal honesty. Our most innovative species, our most productive worlds, our youngest populations, they're all migrating to Outer Rim territories, where they see better opportunities for growth and development. Elena activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic migration patterns. The data was striking. Over the past 50 years, nearly 2 billion galactic citizens had voluntarily relocated to Prosperity Sphere worlds. The brain drain was becoming an existential crisis for galactic civilization. The Altarian Dominion has lost 40% of its population to Outer Rim colonies, she noted. The Vegan Confederacy is down 60%. At current rates, several core worlds will be functionally abandoned within 2 generations. We know the numbers, Vexthara said, frustration creeping into their voice. What we don't understand is why our most successful civilizations are choosing to abandon everything they've built. Elena had been expecting this question for years. The answer was complex, rooted in fundamental differences between how galactic civilization and Outer Rim societies approached growth, challenge, and purpose. Your civilizations offer security, stability, and predictability, she explained. Those are valuable things. But they're not enough for beings who want to build something new, explore something unknown, or leave a mark on the galaxy that future generations will remember. She gestured to the displays showing Outer Rim territories. In the Prosperity Sphere, a young engineer can design and build their own space habitat. A scientist can explore uncharted star systems. An artist can create works that incorporate techniques from 4 different species. A family can homestead an entire world. We offer those opportunities within our territories, Vexthara protested. You offer regulated, supervised, committee-approved versions of those opportunities, Elena corrected gently. The difference is that in galactic space, innovation happens despite the system. In Outer Rim space, innovation happens because of the system. The evidence supported her assessment. Prosperity Sphere territories had become incubators for technological advancement, cultural innovation, and social experimentation. Young beings from across the galaxy were attracted not just by economic opportunities, but by the chance to participate in something dynamic and growing. Vexthara pulled up their own analysis, showing the economic projections that kept galactic leadership awake at night. At current migration rates, galactic civilization will lose the critical mass necessary to maintain our technological infrastructure within 150 years. Unless, Elena prompted, unless we can convince our populations that galactic space offers the same opportunities as Outer Rim territories. Elena considered the implicit request. Galactic civilization wanted the Prosperity Sphere to somehow limit their growth, reduce their opportunities, make themselves less attractive to galactic citizens seeking better lives. High Counselor, she said carefully, what you're describing isn't cooperation. It's asking us to cripple ourselves to preserve your competitive position. I'm asking you to consider the stability of galactic civilization. Vexthara replied. If current trends continue, you'll have achieved your expansion at the cost of destroying the society that gave birth to galactic culture, science, and philosophy. The argument was cleverly made, appealing to humanity's sense of responsibility and historical preservation. Elena could see why Vexthara had been chosen to make this particular request. Their species was known for sophisticated manipulation of emotional and ethical arguments. "Let me offer a different perspective," Elena said, activating displays that showed the full scope of current galactic development. Galactic civilization isn't dying, it's evolving. The question is whether it evolves by adapting to new realities or by trying to preserve old limitations. The display showed something that would have seemed impossible a century ago. Former galactic core worlds that had voluntarily restructured their societies along prosperity sphere principles. Instead of declining into irrelevance, they had experienced Renaissance periods of growth, innovation, and cultural vitality. The Regal Republic reformed their government to eliminate bureaucratic obstacles to innovation, Elaine explained. They've experienced their first population growth in 3 centuries. The Sirius Compact restructured their economy to reward risk-taking and entrepreneurship. Their technological output has tripled by abandoning the principles that made galactic civilization stable and peaceful, Vexthara pointed out. By abandoning the limitations that made galactic civilization stagnant and declining, Elena countered. Stability without growth isn't preservation, it's just a slower form of decay. The fundamental philosophical difference was laid bare. Galactic civilization viewed change as a threat to be managed and minimized. Outer Rim civilizations viewed change as an opportunity to be embraced and directed. Elena decided to present the offer that humanity had been preparing for this moment. "High Counselor, the Prosperity Sphere is willing to make a formal proposal to the Galactic Council. We're listening. Full integration. Not absorption, not conquest, not the destruction of galactic civilization. Integration. We combine our growth-oriented systems with your stability-focused infrastructure. We merge our exploration capabilities with your diplomatic networks. We create something that's neither traditional galactic civilization nor pure Outer Rim society, but a synthesis that preserves the best of both." Vexthara was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. "You're proposing to restructure galactic society."
I'm proposing to save galactic society, Elena corrected.
"Your current path leads to demographic collapse and technological obsolescence. Our proposal offers a path to renewal and growth while preserving the cultural and philosophical achievements that make galactic civilization worth preserving." The offer was carefully crafted to appeal to galactic pride while acknowledging galactic limitations. Rather than demanding surrender, humanity was offering partnership in building something greater than either civilization could achieve alone. "What would this integration look like practically?" Vexthara asked. Elena smiled, recognizing the shift from philosophical debate to practical negotiation. "Open borders throughout the galaxy, unified technological development programs, joint exploration fleets expanding into intergalactic space, cultural exchange programs that preserve diversity while encouraging innovation, economic systems that reward both stability and growth, and governance, confederation rather than hegemony. Each member civilization maintains internal autonomy while contributing to common goals. Decisions made by consensus among equals rather than directives from a central authority." The proposal represented everything that galactic civilization had once rejected when humanity first sought contact, but a century of relative decline had taught hard lessons about the costs of inflexibility. Vexthara stood, indicating the end of the formal negotiations. "I'll present your proposal to the full council. You should know that there will be significant resistance from conservatives who view any change as a threat to galactic stability." "And you should know," Elena replied, "that the prosperity sphere will continue growing and developing regardless of the council's decision. We're not asking for permission to exist. We're offering you the chance to be part of what comes next." As the meeting concluded, Elena reflected on the century-long journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had been rejected as primitive and unworthy, had built their own civilization in the darkness between stars, and had ultimately returned to offer salvation to the society that had spurned them. The galaxy had excluded Earth, thinking it would eliminate a problem. Instead, it had created a solution. A year later, as Elena watched the formal signing ceremony that established the Galactic Confederation, a merger of traditional galactic civilization and the prosperity sphere, she thought about her great-great-grandmother, who had first carried humanity to the stars. Captain Sarah Chen had faced rejection with dignity and had chosen to build rather than complain. Her choice had echoed across 4 generations, ultimately transforming not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The signing ceremony was held on a new world, New Harmony, constructed specifically for this purpose. Representatives from over 300 civilizations gathered to witness the birth of something unprecedented, a galactic government designed for growth rather than maintenance, exploration rather than administration, innovation rather than preservation. In her closing remarks, Elena addressed the assembled delegates with words that would be remembered for millennia. A century ago, this galaxy told humanity that we weren't good enough to join your community. Today, we celebrate the birth of a community good enough for everyone, including those who once thought they were above needing improvement. The galaxy had excluded Earth, forcing humanity to become something greater than they had ever imagined. In doing so, they had given humanity the tools to help everyone else become greater as well. The age of limitation was ending. The age of possibility had begun. And at its heart stood the species that had been deemed unworthy, now leading the way to a future that none of the old civilizations could have imagined alone. Humanity had indeed smiled, walked away, and built something better. Now they were sharing it with the galaxy that had once rejected them, because that, ultimately, was what humanity did. They turned rejection into redemption, exclusion into expansion, and dismissal into the foundation of something magnificent. The galaxy had learned, perhaps too late for some, never to underestimate a species willing to prove their worth to themselves rather than others. In the end, that had made all the difference.